Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, boys and girls, no matter where in the world you might be. We have been waiting a long time to bring you this show. Very excited. It's our first episode of the Goalkeeper Show with our very special guest, Mike from You Are My Arsenal. Here we go, Gooners. Mind the gap between the train and the platform. Please stand clear of the discussion doors. The next stop is Highbury Squad. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the show, no matter where in the world you might be. Greetings to all of you. Hope you're all safe and healthy and happy in this crazy universe we're living in. And I'm so happy to bring one of our favorites back. I've been talking football with this fella, I don't know, for about 10 years now.
Gotta be.
One of the first ever Arsenal bloggers I interviewed back in the day, along with Andrew from Arseblog. Welcome to the show, Mike from You Are My Arsenal. Hello, my friend. How are you?
I am well, Sophie. How are you? Yes, it has been a while. I mean, let's go back. You and Kenny on
Yeah.
World Football Daily.
I can't believe it's been that long, Mike.
It has been. It has
It's
been
crazy.
And now we're getting to work together, which is like I'm stoked beyond all. Like,
I couldn't think of a better person for this show. I reached out to Mike and I said, look, I've been noodling on doing this. I don't know if there's another podcast that's actually doing a specific goalkeeper show. And knowing Mike, having been so passionate about this position for years, he's also trained his sons personally, who are now going to college as very talented footballers. And I believe one of them are they both goalkeepers, Mike?
No, so Andrew is heading to college to play goalkeeper at Division III here in the US. And Aiden is still in high school. He's my Mesut Ozil. He's my midfield creator, but he can also score from the midfield, so he's better than Mesut Ozil. I'm just saying.
Yeah, maybe we'll switch that to Martin Odegaard now.
Yeah, actually, yeah. So yeah, it is a position that I really love. I think it's one that doesn't get a lot of attention except when the ball goes into the back of the net.
Yeah. And I think one of the things that's really pivotal for us this season is we finally have a goalkeeper that fans have fallen in love with again. And it's been a really long time. Not to say that fans weren't in love with our previous goalkeepers over the last 5 years or so. But before we get stuck into the position, which I think we both agree, and we've been swatting a little bit, well, Mike has. And, like he said, it's a position that doesn't get enough love, but this season it's a totally different ball game. Tell us a little bit about your background, why goalkeeping, Mike, let everyone know.
So a little bit of background. I hold, and a lot of this will talk in context of U.S. soccer. So U.S. soccer does license, not badges. I'm a holder of a U.S. soccer C license, which is the equivalent of about a UEFA B. Right. I'm waiting. My application is in for a U.S. Soccer B. It's very difficult to get a B or an A in the U.S. simply because they want to know what your career path is for coaching. So I'm waiting for that. But and in the meantime, what I've done is the other way to get education here in the United States is through United Soccer Coaches, which used to be another organization, and National Collegiate, National Coaches Association or something like that. And when I was taking my courses earlier on in U.S. soccer, goalkeeping is part of that, and it's lightly touched on in your courses here in the U.S. But as a father, it started primarily as the father of a goalkeeper, but also as I became more tactically astute and wanted to have my own style of play, I started becoming more and more aware of the importance of the role of a goalkeeper in a starting 11. So I started getting my own education, and United Soccer Coaches has multiple levels of goalkeeper training. I've completed my goalkeeper 1. I've completed my Goalkeeper 2. The next level is Goalkeeper 3, which I will be taking on. And then there's the advanced national goalkeeper training. And look, that doesn't make you any better. The one thing to remember about any goalkeeper trainer or coach, and I consider myself a trainer, I don't work exclusively with as a goalkeeper coach because I'm a head coach, right? So
Mm-hmm.
I spend my time working on the whole team, but I do train. I fill in at a couple academies here and there. And I'm actually the president of a grassroots club here in the US where I'm helping build the goalkeeper training program. My son actually happens to be one of the trainers that we're using. He's getting the coaching bug now too.
I
So,
love it.
so I've gone through those courses. I'm going through those courses. The one thing to say is I am by means not an expert. There's Eric Steele from Manchester United, who I consider the god of goalkeeper trainers and coaches. Phil Wedden, who used to be he's from the UK, but he used to be the US men's national team goalkeeper coach. He also trained the women. Hope Solo's one of his
Mm-hmm.
students, right? I love Phil. He's a great guy. I literally take his content like a sponge. And I love the position simply because how it has evolved. When I played the game, the goalkeeper was make a save, kick the ball long. And it was funny.
Yeah.
I saw somebody post a video a few weeks ago of goalkeepers in the 80s and 90s. And honestly, all they did was get the ball and boot it as far as they can down the field. And now we're
No
seeing
playing out the back.
no playing out of the back ever. But now the goalkeeper has evolved. And my own personal philosophy in terms of I play a more direct, my teams that I coach, even at the youth level and above, I try to play a more direct possession style. Yes, it's possession based, but if we have the opportunities to go direct, we go direct. And the goalkeeper is part of that. Playing out of the back for me just doesn't mean playing through the center backs and the wing backs. Playing out of the back means if the goalkeeper gets the ball at his feet, he's looking for, if there's a direct option that bypasses multiple defenders, I'm okay with a goalkeeper making that choice, right? So that's my philosophy. So I became more attuned with how the goalkeepers become an 11th field
Mm-hmm.
player on the field. And I push my goalkeepers up out of the box as we're deep in their end. I want my goalkeeper beyond somewhere in the middle of the circle and the top of the 18. So it's kind of like it's involved and you and I have talked about the position for so long. And I think we, like many Arsenal fans, have just absolutely fallen in love with Aaron Ramsdale. And that
Mm-hmm.
kind of was the impetus for this, is because we've just absolutely fallen in love with this guy, both from what he's done on the pitch, and really, how he may be an influence in our evolution as a team under Michael Arteta right now.
Yeah. He is definitely the inspiration behind all of this. And what I'd love for us to get stuck into for the first episode is the fundamentals,
Yeah.
right? So I think we've all fallen in love with the idea of, and what you just talked about in terms of your teams and how you like them to play and how involved you like them compared to how we grew up watching
Mm-hmm.
goalkeepers and their positions. It was always about more spectacular saves than getting involved in anything. And
Right.
like you said, kicking the ball up the field. Back passes used to be a thing back then too, where you're able to scoop up the ball and get your team out of trouble. The game has evolved and changed a lot since then. So where would you start the conversation
All right.
today, Mike, in the sense of, this guy truly has inspired a new generation of fans, but also reignited the love of, I think, our club and the position for us Generation Xers and baby boomers as well.
All right, let's start at this area first. In the FA, they have the four corner developmental model, and if anybody knows about that, these foundations are technical, tactical, psychological, social, and physical. And depending on where you are in the world, that may be slightly different, right? And those are the foundations of development for any player, even a goalkeeper. So let's start with the technical stuff. I think at this level, we should all appreciate that. And this is something you and I were talking about off the air. The idea of a goalkeeper as a shot stopper. We hear it all the time, Sophie. Oh, he's a great shot stopper. Bernd Leto is a great shot stopper. He was a great shot stopper, right? They're a goalkeeper. If they're not shot stoppers, then they're not a goalkeeper. every goalkeeper should be a shot stopper, right? It's for me, when you're assessing a goalkeeper at any level, especially as they progress through the youth into the pro, the semi-pro, the pro here in the US, the college game, it's what I'll call the intangibles. It's what I talk to other goalkeeper coaches and trainers about when we're assessing goalkeepers. It's the intangibles. What beyond just the ability to make a save do you bring the game? And what do I mean by that? And that's that area of the four corner. Why do I bring up the four corner development? It's that psychological, social, and a little bit of the tactical component to the game, because I think they all blend themselves into what I think Aaron Ramsdale brings into it. And for him, it's, for what I see in terms of the intangibles from him, there's a confidence that he exudes out there every time. I personally don't have an issue with Bernd Leno. I think Bernd Leno is a good goalkeeper, but there are times when I've gone back and watched him again, there's moments on the field where I'm not always convinced that he's confident in his own ability. Right.
Mm-hmm.
With Aaron Ramsdale, there is never a moment that I've looked at him and said, this guy is unsure of himself. He exudes confidence every time he's on a field. And I think that's a foundational thing that sets him apart from so many different goalkeepers that we've had in the last few years. He just exudes a confidence. And maybe that's youthful. Maybe that's just a youthful element of him being so young. But I think that's infectious, and it bleeds over to his teammates on this field. They know he's confident. They know he's back there. They know he's he's got control. He's accountable. He's one of the other things I like about him is his ability to evaluate his own play honestly. There was, in wake of the Leicester game, he really, talked about some of the goals that he let in. And one of the things I always ask my goalkeepers, I always, with my teams, if a goal goes in, I tell my team, let's assess where everybody broke down, because a goal going into the back of the net, to me, isn't the fault just of a goalkeeper. It's the fault of the 10 field players as well. But that being said, I always want my goalkeeper to evaluate, what could you have done differently to maybe make a save there, right? Aaron Ramsdale does that, and he did it in the interview post Leicester, where he talks about more power through his dive, the positioning of his feet, getting his feet underneath him and set, and that kind of stuff. So I like that about him. He's confident. He's not afraid to take some of this on himself. The other thing I see in him that I like, and I wish, it's only the only reason I wish we were still behind closed doors is because I loved hearing goalkeepers talk. I love Matty Ryan. When Matty Ryan played for us last year, one of the first things I saw, and it's a film now, that it's actually a film clip that I share with my goalkeepers all the time now. It's Matty Ryan mic'd up communicating with the back line, and it was effective, short communication, right? Talking to Gabriel, you heard him actually speaking Spanish to Gabriel, and just very simple, effective communication. Unfortunately, we can't hear that much with Ramsdale, but I think it's pretty evident from watching him play that he's an effective communicator. And then I'm just looking at my notes.
Can I just touch on the communication part? Because as good as this guy was, and he was brilliant at Chelsea, and he won the Golden Glove with us, didn't he? I think in 2015.
I think was it his first season with us that he won it?
I think so. I have a graphic somewhere. I'll find it. But and of course he was part of the FA Cup winning team, and he won a few of those when he was at Chelsea as well. For me, Ramsdale's the most vocal goalkeeper I think I've seen at Arsenal since I've started watching Arsenal, and I'm talking about the Highbury days. Now, am I exaggerating that a little bit? Or no? Because obviously Seaman was a phenomenal goalkeeper, but communication in the modern day game, especially with a very new back line, Mike, is so important.
But you're seeing you see an evolution of the modern goalkeeper. The DNA of a goalkeeper has changed from that. I think even David Seaman would tell you that the requirements for him as a goalkeeper were different than the requirements that we expect of Aaron Ramsdale now. Aaron Ramsdale is, I think, at least how Michael Arteta wants to use him, is an 11th field player. So the shot stopping, as I said earlier, is the basis, the entry level requirement. It's everything else. It's that communication. And I do think the communication has evolved. I look at the goal. I spend a lot of time with my goalkeepers, making sure they understand how I want the team to play, because I want them to almost be an extension of me as a coach on the field. There's another, I know, Sophie, you're very familiar with MLS. You're a big LA, Galaxy fan, but you probably are also familiar with the team that I follow here in the US, the Union. And I think they have arguably the best goalkeeper in the league in Andre Blake. And if you've ever, the Philadelphia Union does mic'd up players all the time, and some of the content on Andre Blake is a coach on the field. And that's beyond just getting the shape back when they're off the ball. It's when they're on the ball, he's seeing things. It's the best position on the field to see play. So Curtin uses him to be a coach. When you see that next pass, make that next pass. Where is there a gap in the field? See that. So the communication now has become so much more important as the game has become so much more tactical, right? As systems and setups become so much more a component of the game, the goalkeeper who sees everything, and the center backs to another extent, really have to be the biggest communicators and extension of the coaches on the field.
Yeah. What I like about him too is that whether it's positive or negative, he's unafraid to communicate with his back line. And I think that's the other thing that we've lacked as a unit, Mike, over the years. It's not just about bellowing, right? He's actually being effective with what he's saying. There's a really big difference between just yelling at everybody and actually affecting, whether it's positional play, whether it's, like you say, seeing something ahead of you, whether it's good or bad. I like the fact that he's unafraid at his age and his very premature tenure at Arsenal so far. It feels like he's been there 10 years.
I know.
But that's important, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. First of all, there's a couple components to that, I think. And actually, in preparation for this, I went back and looked at some of Bernd Leno. And when goals would go in against Bernd Leno never seemed to want to own his role in that goal. Right. And there's one in particular. I remember on the site last year, I kept doing the anatomy of a goal. And it was basically breaking down the goals that we let in. And there was one goal where he passes into Xhaka, who is moving forward into the 18. Now, to me, that's a poor decision to make that pass, right? Because Leno's moving towards the 18, not away from the 18. He's moving in with a defender right on his back. Leno has I know we want to play out of the back, but Leno has no business making that pass. Well, what happens is we're under pressure. We turn it over deep in our 18, and there's a goal. And what does Leno do? Leno's communication is to berate the players for their decisions. I get the feeling with Ramsdale, yes, he'll hold his players accountable. Hey, and you see him at times, get demonstrative, if you will, out there on the field when there's a breakdown. But I never get the sense. Again, I'm not hearing what he's saying, but visually, I'm just seeing a goalkeeper who's not laying blame. He's trying to hold his players accountable. But he will take the blame when things go in. And again, the comments I found in preparation for this discussion were around Leicester, how he really owned some of the goals that he let in. And I'm not sure that he had a fault for the 2 goals that he let in against Leicester.
Right. Can you talk me through a little bit too about the evolution from and if it's warranted, and I think it is, because the biggest difference that Arsenal fans see between Leno, and he's the most recent of our past, is the inability to play the ball out of the back the way this manager wants to. And I mean, every modern day manager wants to play the ball out
Mhm.
of the back, it seems. And it feels like the reason why we've been able to progress as much as the back line have been so good, they've been cohesive positionally, they're stronger, they're smarter, they're more mature. Yes,
Mhm.
we still have some naivety in our very young team that's gelling and coming together, Mike. But the biggest stark of a difference is not only his presence and the fact that, he has this aura about him, but his ability on the ball and what he does with
Yeah.
it and the decision making. Can you talk me through that a little bit in terms of what we had and what we've inherited with Ramsdale?
I think the biggest thing in terms of playing out of the back is I think you've got to watch how he's connected to his back line.
Hmm.
So as the ball moves to one side of the field to the other, watch his movement. See how he is always engaged with his back line. As the ball moves out to the right, watch his movement, watch his body shape as he kind of is open to where the ball is at that time. Watch that because from a technical aspect, that's what I'm seeing. And it's a tactical component too, right?
Hmm.
He's always in a position relative to the ball to be ready to receive the ball for playing through. It's actually one of the coaching points that I give my son all the time, that I feel at times he's not always connected to his back line, and he's got a good relationship with his back line. But there are moments when I know that the head coach of his team wants to play through him, but there are times when he's not available
Hmm.
for that pass. I never get that sense with Ramsdale. Going back to Leno, I'm not so sure that he wasn't that bad with his feet, like in terms of receiving the ball and whatnot. Just never felt that at times he was prepared for the ball to come back to him. That means he's not connected. And there's also probably a level of trust that, going back to those intangibles,
Hmm.
I don't know why, but this back five, I'm going to call it a back five,
Hmm.
right? Because as a coach, I actually never say it's the goalkeeper plus a back four. It's the back five. They are a unit that works together. There's a did you and I think it may have actually been Ramsdale. He was on some show where he's on the golf course talking about
Yes.
the fact that they just love to keep the other team out of the net. They
Hmm.
just and so that tells me that there's a unit that believe in each other, that trust each other, that play with each other and support each other, and it's so good to see because you didn't hear that with a Leno.
No,
And
it's been a long time since we've had a back five that trust each other.
yeah,
And when you look at Leno had to play with Bellerin, Mustafi, Kolasinac. I mean, the level of talent. And look, we've still got a long way to go,
right.
but there clearly was a mistrust among that group.
But I'm gonna a little yes, but I also want to say let's also not let's not take away from the coaching aspect. And look, this is not
Sure.
about
Yeah.
Michael Arteta came in and made rebuilding the back a significant priority in his he and I agree with that focus because and the one thing it's funny Phil he goes by Phil I am on Twitter, but Phil and I were talking about this. You never get the sense that our back line, and I include Ramsdale in the ability to do this, is never out of position, right? And
Mm.
I think that is because of coaching and because now the level of communication across the back five is so significant and so good that you just you just don't get the haphazardness of our previous defensive units that we've had in front of our goalkeeper. And look, maybe some of our goalkeepers were actually decent goalkeepers, but the defending was so haphazard in front of them that
Yeah.
you were seeing more 1v1s on. I mean, when's the last time you saw a 1v1 on Aaron? When's the last time you saw a 1v1 on Aaron Ramsdale? I can't remember.
Yeah, it's really quite incredible. And I think you bring up a really good point in terms of positional play, because I was having the same conversation with my cousin Louis last night about Laka up front and what he offers
Mhm.
differently. Even though he doesn't score, what he offers the team when he doesn't is so much greater than what Aubameyang has been offering of
Right.
late.
Yeah.
Positionally, he's really smart. He runs the channels really well. And you're so right about that. And I think, when you're a goalkeeper and you do have a Gabriel and a Ben White in front of you, especially a Gabriel and a Tomiyasu who steps in
Mm-hmm.
and covers, that's going to give you extra confidence too. And so you're right in the sense that Liverpool's rebuild actually started from the front to the back. Their
Mm-hmm.
last two pieces of the jigsaw puzzle were Virgil van Dijk and Alisson, whereas
Mm-hmm.
Mikel Arteta did definitely start from the back going forward. And in the last few games, we're seeing the evolution of that.
Mm-hmm.
What do you take with regards to, like, what do you see from the goalkeeping side of the coaching with Ramsdale in terms of, look, when we signed him, the sky fell. There were so many people that just their lives fell apart,
Right.
Mike. I mean, what is
Right.
this? And as a goalkeeping coach, your initial thoughts when we signed him, clearly, I had friends of mine who are Wimbledon fans, Leeds,
Mm-hmm.
Sheffield United fans as well, and they loved him. They absolutely
Mm-hmm.
loved him. I mean, he'd go into the stands and sing with fans. I mean, he's that kind of guy. And I
Right.
think that's something that we've really missed. But what were your initial thoughts? Were you expecting this type of play from him this soon?
Not this soon. I was not on the negative train for him. I think I saw enough from him. I went to Brighton
Mm-hmm.
because Sheffield United last year were under the cosh all the time. So his play was always about being direct, relieving the pressure that the team found themselves under. They weren't really playing through him, more or less relying on him to be an outlet to alleviate the pressure.
Mm.
But at Brighton, not Brighton. I'm sorry. Did I say I
I
meant
did that to you because
I
I was thinking about Ben White in my
Bor,
head when I
Bor,
said Leeds and Brighton. Sheffield United.
Sheffield United, but go back to the year that he got relegated with
Mm-hmm.
Bournemouth, and I think Eddie Howe did try to play through him, and you could
Mm-hmm.
see that the decision making on the ball when the ball came into him was the decisions were really smart. They were really like he was finding the relief. He was finding that man in the middle. He was finding the open player, and and if it wasn't on, then he was playing a little bit more direct ball.
Mm-hmm.
So I was hopeful that we found somebody who look, I've been of the mind that even before they decided to make the switch this year after the first 3 games, I felt that what we were going to see was Leno. I thought we would see Ramsdale play all the cup games, and then about now we'd start to
Mm-hmm.
see a switch, right? Because I don't think
Yeah.
I think Leno wants to leave. I think he's just not comfortable here. I think he's going to go back to Germany. Um, and that's not to say that he's a failure here or anything like that. I just think he's a different kind of goalkeeper than this league requires. And
Or that our team requires.
yeah, I think or that our team requires right now. And that's
Mm-hmm.
not a knock on him because you know what? Prior to his injury and everybody falling in love with Emiliano Martinez again, he was our player of the year that season. He was
Yes.
he saved us from so many points. But the thing about it is the difference is, and this is something I was just picking up from Phil Wedden. We were praising him that year as a player of the year because we were depending on him so much because we were seeing a lot of his action.
Mm-hmm.
And he saved us that season. That season before his injury, he was saving us a lot. But you can actually measure the effectiveness of a goalkeeper by how, and I want to make sure I say this right and it's understood. And if you tell me you don't understand it, I'll understand because I'm not going to say this right way. I think the measure of the effectiveness of a goalkeeper and the overall construct of a team by how few actions they make in a game. If you're calling on a goalkeeper to make 7-8 saves a game, they're touching it 8 or 9 times a game with their feet, they're maybe handling 10-15 crosses in a game. I'm asking
Yeah.
you, to me, there's a bigger problem with the team. Now, if I don't see a lot of actions with the team, I'm going to kind of give the goalkeeper some credit in terms of their organizational ability of keeping the team in front of them structured. Right?
Yeah, it's funny. It's funny you say. It's funny you say that. I had that conversation with Jonathan Bond, the goalkeeper for LA Galaxy. He said exactly what you just said.
Yeah,
Exactly.
it's to me. Look, and look, we get enamored with the beautiful saves. I mean, come on, that one save on Leicester on Madison. I loved it. I got a lot of criticism for the second. What's the one that he made a couple weeks
Tottenham one.
later,
The
the
Tottenham
Tottenham
one.
one,
Yeah.
where he hit it and it goes in, and he saves it and it hits the crossbar and comes
Crossbar.
out,
Hmm.
right? I actually gave him some technical criticism on that because he went bottom hand on it rather than top hand. And if you watch him when he does it, and this is very nitpicky like stuff.
Very.
This is very, very
But that's why
nitpicky,
you're a trainer and I'm not.
right?
So
So he goes bottom hand and he's like this a little bit. Okay. So if the crossbar's here, he's opened up. So he palms it to the post. If he's even a little bit more open on that, he's putting that ball into the net, right? The decision there should, to me at least, and again, it's very nitpicky. In the end, let's all just, for this show, let's just
yeah.
keep this mantra.
Yeah.
A
Yeah. Yeah.
save is a save is a save. I don't care if it goes in off your ass, if it goes in off your head. You make a save, that's it. You've made a save, right? But if we want to be nitpicky, that one we can be a little nitpicky. He goes bottom hand and he probably should have gone top hand, right?
Yeah. It's interesting because for me, everyone says a goalkeeper is like a wine, right?
Mm-hmm.
With age,
Mm-hmm.
wine tastes better.
Right.
And he's so young, Mike. So these things but it's important that his coaches, and this is why coaches and trainers, nitpick, because
Mm-hmm.
in order to be, at the top of your game, you have to work on those things.
Right.
But the fact that he's performing the way he is at his young age, and he's still only been Arsenal's starting goalkeeper since, the beginning of the season, and we're not even into the new year
Since
yet.
September, if you really think about it.
It's really quite incredible to think how many years he could be leading
Look, the
at
idea
the
of
back.
the idea of a generational talent doesn't come into the conversation a lot with goalkeepers, does it?
No.
Right? It really doesn't. I mean, um, but you're right. He's such a young goalkeeper, and he's doing a lot well right now for being such a young goalkeeper, right? And if he can only get better as he gets older, then you've got to really think that Arsenal may have like paid nothing for a goalkeeper that's going to be with them for another 10 to maybe, let's say, 15 years,
Mhm.
depending on the trajectory of Arsenal over that time frame, you
Yeah,
know?
it's amazing to think that, and I'll get you out on these couple of questions
Yep.
here, but just to wrap that point is that to think that we have that in him, and then
Mhm.
you couple that with Saka and a Smith Rowe, Martinelli, and Tierney, and if this team can stay together, oh my, I'm just my spine's tingling just
It
thinking about it, Mike.
it is, and look, it's not exactly the model back from the old days when everybody who came into the first team was a Hale End graduate, but it's
Right.
pretty damn close, right?
Yeah.
I mean, these guys were young enough that they were brought in to grow together, and we're gonna and hopefully we're fortunate enough to see them grow together. And Aaron Ramsdale, I just love the guy. I tell my son, I said, if you want to be like any goalkeeper, be like this guy. And especially when you have, and I mean, come on, let's take a moment to just talk about the banter he has with traveling fans.
I love
I
it.
mean, he gets, but actually, that's actually a good. Let me kind of actually put a serious spin on that.
Mhm.
One of my son's early goalkeeper coaches told me, and it stuck with me about the goalkeeper position. To be a goalkeeper, you have to have a certain amount of crazy in you, right?
Yeah.
And I think Ramsdale has that. There's that just little wicked craziness about him where he gets juiced up by that banter that comes at him, and I love that. I can live for that all day long.
I loved seeing that against Leicester, against Leeds. He runs around in circles. It's true. It's like this crazy genius, and I love it. Certain positions you just have to have that. Totally
Yeah.
agree with you on that front. And you could tell his teammates, the manager, they all respond to him, and they just
Hmm.
love him.
Yeah.
And seeing how he
Absolutely.
responds when he's not playing, even
Hmm.
with the England when he came up and he hugged Saka, and he's
Hmm.
just that type of teammate,
Right.
which I think is also so important to know. There's this
And
nucleus in the dressing room, Mike.
and that goes to that, and I know that this is not the show for it, but it goes to actually what Michael Arteta is trying to do with this team, and that is
Mhm.
build a culture. And look, we can for another show talk the tactical deficiencies in Michael Arteta and some of the concerns we have. But I do believe in what he's trying to build. I do believe that it starts in there's a great book out there that I read about it starting in the locker room. I think I think the actual title of the book is Starts in the Locker Room. And it's all these great coaches who talk about building a culture of a team.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he's just got these young guys that are all bought into what they're trying to do. They're all talented youngsters. I mean, maybe they're not, maybe 2 or 3 of them will be otherworldly stars, right?
Mm-hmm.
Of a level that like other teams just drool over, but they're all good talents. They're all good talents and they're growing together. So
and Mike,
I'm
in order
plus.
to, yeah, me too. And in order to rebuild that culture, you have to have the right player
Mm-hmm.
profile and
Yeah.
DNA. And
Mm-hmm.
that is the biggest difference.
Right.
Even when you look at, the upgrade on Bellerin, the upgrade on Mustafi, the upgrade on Socrates, the upgrade on Kolasinac, the upgrade in these areas, the DNA and the profile of the player, considering we weren't able to offer European football in our summer transfers. And yet, you got to give the club credit for going out and finding these gems. I want to end on this and then let you close with any comments that you have, Mike.
Sure.
I'm really excited to get stuck into game action with you as well as the series grows. It is the 4 quadrants you talked about with the FA. Which ones do you think Ramsdale possesses one better than the other, and what's his weakness? Is there a weakness? Or you talked about the nitpicking on the save, but on those 4, do you think that right now he's where he needs to be? But do you see any? No. Do you see any gaps?
I don't know that it's so. One of my coaching mentors told me that at this level, the coaching when you coach youth, think big, right? You're teaching big movements, big, right? As you get older and older and you get coaching, like I was asking him about coaching at the pro level because he's coached at the pro level. And he said to me, he goes, really at this level, we're talking millimeters. Like if we're talking about the distance between 2 defenders, we're literally talking about a fraction of a step one way or the other. It's the same thing with a goalkeeper. It's like I was trying to talk about that bottom hand save. I think what you've got to work on a little bit with him is just a little bit more of that technical stuff in the tactical setup that Arteta's trying to play, right? Making sure that he's constantly committed and connected to the back 4, making sure that his distribution is always solid. Now, look, I'm not saying his distribution is bad. It's not. His distribution is amazing. I mean, Sophie, go back to what you said about 5 minutes ago. This is a 22, 23-year-old. And the ball he hit, the long pinged pass out that he just nailed, was it to Lacazette against West Ham?
Yes.
Oh my God, that was amazing.
It's
You don't expect that from a keeper his age. I don't know. I'd have to really look. If I wanted to find out where I think he's deficient right now, I think I'd have to spend a lot of time watching the first half of the season to really find something that I go, oh, well, that's a problem. And look, maybe this is it. Maybe I'm making it up. Maybe some of these saves these fantastic saves, there might be a little showboating involved.
I love that.
No, and
Why not?
No, because I'll go back to that Tottenham save. A lot of people said he saw it late. I don't think he saw that late. I mean, you had Ben White in front of him, and then Gabriel moves across the line. If you watch the clip that's looking down the field at him, he can see the shooter at the time, right? His feet are set underneath him. He seems ready to make the dive. I think he shows a little bit of the goal side that he wants the shooter to take because he knows he's going to make that save. I think he may have gotten off a little late on his push, which opened him up a little bit. But again, this is me being a real nitpicky kind of guy because right now I'm having a hard time finding a flaw in his game right now.
Right.
And that's not to say he doesn't have them. And maybe it's looking at a game like the United game and looking at the goals that we gave up, and seeing if there's something there. But for the most part, right now,
and that'll be interesting to maybe circle back because for me, the midfield is what let down the back five the most in that match, and that was pretty.
Our
that was
non-existent midfield in that game.
Yeah, and when you look back at that match and dropping those points, let's hope that doesn't come back to bite us at the end of the season. This has been brilliant for me. I'm going to learn so much, and I've learned, and I think our listeners are going to love it too. And it's a position that deserves a little bit more of a magnifying glass for sure. What else do you want everyone to know before we close, Mike?
Well, first of all, just remember, in terms of goalkeeper coaching, goalkeeping training, every coach, every trainer, every team is different. It's ultimately how the coaches want the player to be within the system that they play. We'll try. I think you and I are going to try and figure out how Ramsdale or any of our goalkeepers fit into that, and what we may do each week. And if people listening to this want to say, hey, could you break down this moment for us? That's what we'll do. I'd love to get people's involvement, because I'm the parent of a goalkeeper. The worst thing in the world is actually sitting in at a youth game when your son is the goalkeeper, because a lot of parents don't understand that it took 11 players on the field for that ball to get into the net, right? But we can still break down those moments to, like I asked my goalkeepers to do. What could you have done to perhaps make that save or prevented that breakdown? Right.
Yeah.
So let's get that from the fans. I just wanted to have it fun. I want us to break down. I'm not perfect. I'm going to make mistakes. Like I think I forget on your show who I said we should keep, and I'm forever going to leave it with that. Never live. There was some player that I said, be fine if we kept. Oh, I think I actually showed some love to Mustafi at some point.
Yeah.
And I got a lot.
I wasn't gonna bring that up. And there's a reason why I have no pictures of Emi Martinez, because he just irritates all of us now. So
hey, look, let's talk just real quick. We'll end on that. He wanted to be a guaranteed starter. And this is where the mentality and the culture comes in, right? Mm-hmm. He didn't want to fight for a position. And this is where I'm going to give Bernd Leno some love. Bernd Leno had over 300 plus first team starts, both in Germany and here in England, right? Versus a guy who played 13 good games for us. I'm all for the competition and fighting for the spot. And had Emi Martinez decided to have enough cojones to actually fight for a position, he'd probably be the starter right now. Mm-hmm. And we wouldn't have brought in Aaron Ramsdale. But no, he wanted to be a guaranteed starter. Good on him that he went and did it. I still see some flaws in his game. He's still, he's a great penalty stopper. I love his, penalty saves, but he lets in too many rebounds.
Yeah, that's my interesting stuff. Brilliant stuff from you, Mike. I do have your handle here on screen at You Are My Arsenal, and the blog's still going. You've got some great writers writing for you. Let everyone know they can find articles each week.
Yep, we're trying to make sure that we're with a regular stream of content that, and we try to be balanced. We're going to critique where we critique. We're going to be praiseful where we're praiseful. We're going to try and break down what we see and just be honest about it. In this. And I think as a writing group, we've all talked about taking on the caustic nature that's on social media and not trying to feed into that. Mm-hmm. Right. We want to be fair and balanced, and we want to maintain our passion for the team that we love. But then we've also relaunched our own podcast. It's a weekly, roundtable of some of the writers, the Avenel Roadcast. We're trying to harken back to our old days, remembering Avenel Road. Right. But I'm really looking forward to this, because this is just awesome. Me and you. This is me and you talking about a position I just love.
Excellent stuff. Brilliant from you, Mike. Thanks so much for joining me today. Hope everyone's enjoyed our very first episode of the Goalkeeper Show. More to come from Mike and this show at the Highbury squad, and we will keep you posted. In the meantime, come on, you Gunners. Salute you, squaddies. We're out. Mind the gap between the train and the platform. Please stand clear of the discussion doors. The next stop is Highbury Squad.